Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. This is a Champions League episode coming out on Monday night, February 19th. Going to cover Tuesday, Wednesday of this week for the ultimate best bet. I'll pick one bet each day. So stay tuned to the end of the show for that. Plus, I'll also cover after we saw the first legs of four of the games so far. I'll cover those lines briefly, but then really go deeper into them when the next round of matches comes up. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com. Just a real_G Warner, the best spot to get all my plays, leans, write-ups. You would have gotten Virginia Tech there tonight, which was a dominant winner. Was up to plus 39 units on pregame. Have sunk a little bit below that standard, but trying to get back to up there at some point soon. If you're not following or subscribed to wherever you're listening to this, please hit follow on Twitter because this is live right now. If you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, leave a 5-star review. It's huge for the rankings and gets me up there when you search betting or anything like that. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. You also can look forward to seeing this chopped into that ultimate best bet little reel at the end if you're on Instagram, the real_G Warner, or on YouTube, the real_G Warner. So let's get into this this slate as I'm recording during the Iowa State Houston halftime. Seems like a pretty good game, which is a little bit surprising so far, but we'll see if Iowa State can kind of maintain that run towards the end of the first half. I'm going to go through, going to give you in-depth on these two match days coming up in this week in Champions League, and then briefly go over what's coming in a few weeks. But to advanced numbers, everything like that, features and stuff coming end of show. So we'll start with PSV Eindhoven hosting Borussia Dortmund. Currently Eindhoven a quarter goal favorite with a little bit more juice at home. Over under here is 2 3/4, juiced all the way to over. Now these numbers have been out for a long time, really ever since the Champions League draw was done. So there's been a fair amount of movement, and I think this was one of the bigger ones in terms of side. As initially PSV opened as a quarter goal underdog, which is what I was expecting the line to be, and has since changed all the way to a quarter goal favorite, which isn't a huge change, I guess you could say, because it's only crossing zero. But to me, that's a big deal because in this sport in soccer, there's a lot of pick'ems that are out there. And you say you're not supposed to tease through zero in the NFL, for example, in American football, but it does seem to me like PSV went from a home underdog and a big underdog to advance in this tie, I guess you'd call it, or as they call it in Europe, to then being given a fairly decent chance, because pretty much everyone in soccer, I make a home field advantage of a quarter of a goal. Some it is probably light and it deserves more. Others it deserves less. But PSV Eindhoven, pretty much any of the Eredivisie or the Dutch sides, they are very strong, have big crowds, and are very intimidating, especially for a team that's pretty soft, like Borussia Dortmund. I think at this point, Dortmund have figured out their defense a lot better this year, but their offense has been fleeting. The addition of Jadon Sancho has certainly helped, but he's been in and out of the lineup, and we'll see. I'm not sure when you can trust him. He has been very good for Borussia Dortmund in the past, and seemingly has made an impact so far since his return after basically being thrown out of Manchester United for his dispute with Erik ten Hag. But Eindhoven is going to be, as a home favorite, I start with them. So I don't know that necessarily they had the greatest Champions League group, but they got out of it, which is all you can ask for, of course. I mean, they're playing in this round and they have an okay draw. I mean, Borussia Dortmund won the group of death, but I don't know necessarily that their play was really deserving of it all. Meanwhile, PSV finished second to Arsenal, got one more point than Lens, despite Lens winning their last match of the calendar. Got a big draw against Arsenal, PSV did, and that was enough. But PSV pretty much, I mean, they were really good, except for getting blown out in their first matchup with Arsenal, pretty much. So maybe credit them for that. Certainly, the Dutch league had moved into the 5th position in the top 5 European soccer leagues from 6th. So that was a pretty significant move. I think most people would say that the German Bundesliga, I think, is 4th, and based on the ratings, I think there is some like quantitative way to describe what league's the top, but. Eindhoven as a quarter goal favorite with a big crowd, that's a tough thing to go into and want to fade. Now, if I probably felt better about Dortmund's offense, I'd probably be more interested there. But I got to say, I don't really feel great about it. I don't, in terms of big moves like this across zero from a quarter goal underdog at home to now a quarter goal favorite, That's telling me that the market believes in PSV Eindhoven because there hasn't been significant injuries that have impacted Borussia Dortmund. They just got Gregor Kobel, their goalkeeper, who's been great, back. So I'm not really sure exactly what that happened or why this change was made. I don't follow the Eredivisie as close as I do the other leagues. I literally watch every match from the top five European soccer leagues or five of the top six now that France's Ligue 1 has fallen out. But if I had, I guess, a little bit better of an ability to watch the Dutch league, I probably would put that on. If I ever wanted to sleep, I mean, I've already given up on that pretty much. But total year is 2 3/4. She's all the way to over, and that's probably my bigger interest. It's bigger than I made it. I feel like the Champions League has been. I mean, there's a lot of money that comes into it, a lot of public money that doesn't follow soccer as closely, wants something to bet and watch during the week, and especially during work hours in the United States. Plus, also now that the American football is over, you got to find something to bet on now. So that all kind of pushes, and I think most money comes in on over. I don't think I'm going out on a limb and saying that. So I think the Dortmund side is it's interesting to me just because I would have expected them to be a favorite as they initially opened, but things have changed since then. I don't really know exactly what has changed, but I think I'll probably go and lean with the market that they. There's a reason why this change has happened in the line, so I'm probably not going to fight it too hard. But for my biggest interest is the potential for the ultimate best bet, I'm going to put the PSV Eindhoven Borussia Dortmund under 2 3/4 on my list, and we might get three by the time it kicks off, and that would be a very important push ability or number to push on. So I will be waiting for that certainly and want to see lineups, but I imagine everyone is going for this because Dortmund don't really have a shot at winning the Bundesliga. To say the least. And the Champions League is the biggest competition, I think, besides domestic leagues. But usually I think Champions League is probably favored unless you have a big lead and you're trying to hold on to it, which Borussia Dortmund certainly do not. The other matchup on Tuesday, we have Inter Milan hosting Atletico Madrid, currently Inter, a 3/4 goal favorite at home. More juice on Atleti on the road. Over unders 2 1/4 here. Juiced juice is split both ways. So not much to say there in terms of juice, but from the Atleti point of view, they haven't been playing great. They had a dominant victory this weekend, but I think it was really just a really awful matchup, or really just an awful game, not a matchup, just bad, big mistakes for a Las Palmas side that usually don't do it. Trying to play out of the back was a disaster, and Atleti really kind of got away with it because they didn't play their best lineup, to say the least. But good for them. They got through, dominant victory, and didn't have to take Antoine Griezmann, who's been really running out of gas or just running on fumes lately, is probably a better way to put it. I think Inter, they've looked like they're now way ahead in Serie A and probably will take Champions League much more seriously. I mean, they were going to take it seriously anyway, but I think they pretty much know the Scudetto is theirs unless they have some real troubles late. And Juventus, who have looked really bad, starts turning on really late all of a sudden and uses not playing in any European competitions to really aid their pursuit of Inter. But Inter are far beyond. I think AC Milan, the cross club rival, is never going to be able to contend, unfortunately. And we saw them lose this weekend as well to Monza. So I just don't think that Inter have a lot of threats for the Scudetto in Italy. So this is a big competition for them. They're going to go out for it. So they get Atleti at home, which they're a pretty big favorite, 3/4 of a goal. But Inter, the best team in Italy. Atleti have been kind of roaming around Spain's best, Spain's elite, but I think they've had some good success with Real Madrid this year, or I guess they're the only team really that's been having any success against Real Madrid. And they're a pretty big underdog here. And if they go and get a draw, you win your full bet. If they lose by a goal, you'll lose half your risk. So not the worst thing. But I got to say, I'm concerned about Atleti. I do feel like they got a huge advantage with the rest that they were able to get, but they did just play Copa del Rey midweek last week before their Sunday match. So, I mean, they're really running on fumes, and that's why I thought it was a great position to bet against them this past weekend. I probably would do it again if in those circumstances. Just hope not to have so many mistakes at the back by a newly promoted. But regardless, Atleti, I think, can give Inter some trouble. So that 3/4 of the goal, just with that push on a single goal loss, does seem valuable to me because I don't think Atleti are going to really come out. If they fall behind, they certainly won't love that, to say the least. But really, they're going to go and try to keep this as low scoring and as close as possible for a second leg at the Wanda Metropolitano, where they played really, really well for a really long time until recently, maybe because the fatigue caught up to him. But with that said, I think under 2.25 here is also very interesting. And I like dog and under. And for my ultimate best bet on this episode on for Tuesday, I'm going to go with that Atletico Madrid under 2.25 goals. It's low, but I feel like we've been seeing very few goals scored in Champions League in the knockout rounds, and I don't think that changes, especially not in this matchup with one team that's going to certainly be playing defense, and they are the road team. I'll get to the two advanced numbers later, and then I'll get to the I guess next matchups from matches that have already been started. The first legs have already been completed. But going to Wednesday, we have Napoli hosting Barcelona. Currently, Napoli a pick'em with all the juice on Barcelona on the road. Over under here is 2.75, juice a little bit more to under. And Barcelona, I mean, they have less pressure because their manager decided he's not going to be around in the future. There's no speculation about when he's going to get sacked, fired, whatever. And they've gotten a couple good results from it, though they were against weaker teams in the league that they never should have been competitive with. Closing a quarter or a half a goal underdog, or excuse me, half a goal favorite on the road to Celta de Vigo, who've been struggling against relegation, is pretty embarrassing and shows the state of Barcelona. And I think before that, against Alaves, I mean, we're a half a goal favorite to newly promoted, who had been a yo-yo team going up and down and being relegated and promoted back-to-back years, it seemed, in Spain. So Barcelona have not solved any problems. The nice part, though, is Napoli are in real big trouble. We'll see if Victor Osimhen, who ruled himself out, he ruled himself out. Like literally, he said he wasn't fit to play, not the team doctors or Napoli itself. And there's been a lot of speculation that he was going to be leaving at the end of his contract. Now PSG is supposedly speaking up because Mbappe is officially gone to Real Madrid. Napoli are going to have, I mean, I went to their stadium this year. I don't think that their crowd was great. I'm not wearing the Napoli color of blue, just it's a coincidence, I promise. But that's the side I want here. I'm not really a believer that Barcelona are any good. And if they're going to be a road favorite, I want certainly something to do with the home team. Now, I don't know if I want to play a pick 'em. I'll certainly be waiting to see if we get a quarter of a goal, though I imagine that will probably be very expensive if we do get it. But the public does love to bet Barcelona. Lots of money comes into Barca, no matter how badly they've been playing. And I feel like they've been getting results which have not been deserved. I mean, the latest stoppage time winner of all of the club's history last weekend after a penalty retake in stoppage time. So, I mean, it hasn't been easy for Barcelona. I don't think it will be on the road in southern Italy against a pretty tough crowd, though one that's unfortunately separated from the pitch by a running track. So it's really not that close, and the fans aren't really that on top of you. But I think based on what I saw and the Milan crowd, basically the traveling support clashing with the Napoli fans, it could be a pretty raucous atmosphere and might be a little bit more of a stressful environment than Barcelona are used to in Spain, which is usually pretty docile, unless you're maybe going to Betis or something like that. Total here is 2.75, which it's really hard to want to have anything to do with an under on Barcelona. But I think what I've said earlier about this competition and watching the first legs, goals are going to be really hard to come by. They're really good teams that have spent a ton of money and a lot of money on attackers, but certainly they have better quality defenses than you'll see in most domestic leagues. So that's probably the way I lean at this point. I'd probably want to get a push on 3 in order to play it. So I put Napoli pick'em as my interest here on Wednesday, and I'll move next to FC Porto hosting Arsenal. So Porto, a 3/4 goal underdog at home, a little bit more juice on Arsenal on the road. Over unders 2.5, juiced all the way to under. So rare to see Arsenal totals this low, considering how dominant they've been, especially in Premier League play. I think they've scored 5 goals or more in like 3 consecutive matches, something ridiculous, something that only Fulham had done recently, but that's seriously a joke, and they've come back down to earth, to say the least. But Arsenal are a road favorite. We're dominant in Champions League in a pretty weak group with Sevilla fighting relegation, and Lens, who were shocking second place finishers in Liga, and then PSV, who I already mentioned. So, and are playing on Tuesday in this week. So I guess good for them, but we'll see if they really have what they're made of. Now, Porto, I think, were pretty disappointing runner-up to Barcelona in a very easy group. No business even having it come down to the final day, which I think it was a little bit more nerve-wracking with Shakhtar Donetsk than it should have been. But Porto and really the Portuguese Liga or Liga Portugal have done really well in this competition, have knocked out big teams like Juventus and other teams in the past. So Arsenal should not feel safe. I think Porto, I think Mehdi Taremi is leaving or maybe has left already. I need to do a lot more research on the Porto side. But I'm hoping this one trends to a one-goal underdog on a home team in a Stadio de Dragao, which should be pretty dominant and should be pretty impactful on an Arsenal side that I just am not that convinced by. They've been playing really well in the Premier League, but they've also been playing some bad teams. They certainly took a good victory against Liverpool, but it required, after their own defensive mistake, Arsenal's, it did require a huge mistake from one of the most solid center backs in the world in Virgil van Dijk. So I don't think Arsenal are really that much different or better than Porto. And so I'm interested in the 3/4 of a goal. There's been money steadily flowing in on Arsenal, and I expect that to continue, especially with the run that they're on. But they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, worried about Champions League, but also have an eye on the Premier League. So I like that setup on a home dog like Porto. I also like the possibility of an under here because I think under and home dog really go well together. Um, Now, for my ultimate best bet on Wednesday, I'll end up summarizing these end of show, put it on YouTube at @the_real_G Warner or on Instagram at @the_real_G Warner on Instagram. So I will tell you which the ultimate best bet is. But I got to pick something from Wednesday, and I'm gonna do Porto getting that 3/4 of a goal. I love for them to get that full goal, but I don't have it yet, and I try to use current lines for when I'm recording this. So I'll summarize that end of show, but I'll start now with the two advanced numbers because we have those for these matchups that are on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. I guess we don't have anything updated from what took place last weekend, but I'll just do a quick, I guess, run through of the spreads and kind of my initial thoughts for those. But we'll start with PSV Dortmund, which is a Tuesday match. Currently PSV a +115 underdog to move through. Now, according to what I had previously, so and I want to give you an idea of where this has moved since I've been tracking it. So let me pull that up. So initially, it looked like Dortmund were a -160 favorite, came all the way down to -128, is back up to -145. So we've seen some buyback, certainly on PSV, and I think that's probably why the line changed or switched from when I was initially looking at it and when PSV were a quarter goal underdog and then moved to a favorite. But it seems like there's been some buyback, maybe because Dortmund have gotten a little bit healthier. Gregor Kobel, their goalkeeper, who's been so important to them, did come back from injury or illness or a combination of both. That's important, but I'm certainly I mean, it hasn't moved too much now. +130 PSV on the underdog side down to 105 was pretty significant, 24% or so move. But now we're back up to +115. So it's kind of halfway between the low and the high. I imagine that we'll see some Dortmund money coming in because of the bigger name, but it does give me some interest in a home team that has the first leg. Because if you pull off a good victory in that first leg, you should be a big favorite in the next one. The problem is if they don't, if Dortmund are able to get a result on the road, then that number will certainly get a lot bigger. Inter Milan, a -170 favorite, $170 winning 100 in the United States of America. Atletico Madrid +145 on the other side. And that hasn't moved nearly as much, to put it that way. Actually, that's wrong. I'm lying to you. Sorry, I don't mean to lie to everybody, but Inter started a -125 favorite at Atleti -105, and now we're all the way up to -170. That's pretty gigantic, actually. Pretty significant move. So let me restate that and say, wow, that's a pretty big jump. So it's 27% or so climbing as a favorite. So that's pretty significant. And I think it's because Atleti were playing really well when these lines initially came out, and then they started to tail off. They had the trip to Saudi Arabia, which is brutal. Inter, on the other hand, had their own Saudi Arabia Supercoppa d'Italia that they won. But Atleti crashed out. But then they had Copa del Rey as well. Inter, I guess, have Coppa Italia too. But for some reason, there's been a lot of money coming in on Inter, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. The Atleti side have moved from -105, $105 will win you 100 to now 100 winning you 145. So that may be the peak. That number's been climbing, but I wouldn't, if you like Atleti, I would not I would not jump in yet. I'd keep waiting to see if this number climbs because that's the only way it's been doing. I'd love to get Inter here, but it's probably too expensive for me. Moving now to the Wednesday matches, to advanced numbers. So Napoli plus 175, 100 will win you 175 to get past Barcelona. Barca minus 225. That initially was minus 170 and plus 138. So Napoli have increased 21% and Barcelona have been bet up 24.5%. And so it looks pretty good movement, I guess. If you're a Napoli backer, again, I'd keep waiting. And I really think you want to see if Victor Osimhen is back in that lineup before. I imagine if there's anything he's coming back for, it's Champions League. But after ruling himself out this past weekend, I'm not really sure what to say about that. Kvaratskhelia hasn't been the same without him, but Politano has been pretty good this year. So I think there is some potent attack, and Barcelona will give up chances. We all know that. Last but not least of the two advanced numbers that I haven't addressed yet, I don't think, might have mentioned them on the last podcast, but regardless, we'll go through them again. Porto, they've moved from plus 360 to plus 400, an increase of 10%. So 4-to-1 odds for Porto to move through. Arsenal 1-6 on, or 6-1 on. So Arsenal minus 600, they've climbed from minus 500. So that's about a 17% increase. And there you see the big, gigantic spreads, unfortunately, that you see between these two. I'm quoting BetOnline lines. I have a promo code in the podcast description on YouTube. Once it's up there, also Apple, Spotify, all those sort of things. Follow those if you don't have an account yet. BetOnline. Sister site Sportsbetting.ag is on there as well, and they're giving double the amount of free money, matching up to $500. So I would take advantage of that if I were you. If you don't have an account there, and if you do have an account, please let me know that it's actually worked out for you, because I've not heard of anyone it not working for, but unfortunately, I'm not sure the tracking has worked very well from my referrals code. So I want to make sure you guys got the bonuses that were offered and that I've been talking about. So let me know if you have followed those links and have subscribed or signed up at either of those places. But unfortunately, I can't speak too much more for that because huge spreads, minus 600 Arsenal, plus 400 Porto, certainly makes me miss the days of Matchbook when you can put a line out there and they were 1 cent wide, like you'll see in option spreads in the stock market. But that reminds me, I need to do a stock episode, but unfortunately that's not the case here. So it's you got to be probably pretty interested in playing what you're playing. And most of the two advanced numbers, I'm looking in the 100 range or around even money, because I think those are the smallest spreads and generally are me not taking a huge underdog to move on, which I feel like is more likely to kind of pick the better one in those scenarios. So in terms of two advanced numbers, I do have Real Sociedad already, which did not get off to a good start and really felt like it was kind of some bad breaks that had them take a 2-0 lead, or had PSG take a 2-0 lead, 2-0 deficit going back to Real Sociedad to San Sebastian Donostia. I guess my biggest interest would probably be PSV plus 115 if you really want to have a future for these two-legged ties. I don't think Atleti get through. And I mean, Napoli plus 175 is interesting, but that's pretty much just a fade of Barcelona at this point, because Napoli have been on my major fade list whenever I can get them as a favorite. Certainly won't see that here, and probably won't see it at this Olympic Stadium in Barcelona either. And Porto, it's a long shot if you want to. I mean, I think there is some value there, but man, it's a big price, and it's going to be hard for them to overthrow Arsenal. So I'll move to the Tuesday, March 5th and March 6th editions. So these are, I guess we'll be playing the set. Thank you, computer. We'll be playing the second legs of the matches happening Tuesday and Wednesday of this week before, but I'll just mention them. So Bayern München opened a 1.5 favorite at home to Lazio, and of course they're trailing 1-0 on aggregate. Not a huge, pretty big spread, bigger than I made it. Total here is 3, juiced all the way to under minus 126 is what's displayed. Looks like some money has come in on Bayern so far based on from the open, and some money certainly on under. And I don't know necessarily, especially when Bayern need a goal and need to win this matchup by at least a goal to send it to extra time. I guess the money coming in on under is backing Lazio's defense, and they were formerly a really good under team, but has not really been sticking to that script for a while now. I I'm more interested in Lazio as I bet them in the first leg, and more interested in betting them here. Well, probably would like under more than anything, which is also scary with Bayern, I gotta say. Real Sociedad to pick them, and they are down 2-0 in aggregate, so they need to win by more than a goal, which is a kind of a nice scenario because PSG are celebrating if they lose 1-0, and that'll cover your pick 'em. And of course, it pushes on a draw as well, so you just really need Real Sociedad not to lose. So I'm interested there. In terms of movement, don't have any so far on the side. And as for the total, looks like some over money's come in. We got 2.5 here. It's very juiced to under, so maybe people are just taking a little bit of plus money on a match that probably should see some goals because Real Sociedad need them. But I think PSG will do a fairly good job defending and probably will advance because they've got such a big lead. Moving to that Wednesday, March 6th calendar, we have Real Madrid, a 1-goal favorite to Leipzig. A little more juice on the Leipzig side. Over under here is 3, juiced all the way to over. That's taking some money on the Leipzig side, surprise, surprise. And actually, we've been seeing some over money hitting on that one. I imagine Real Madrid up 1-0, kind of stole that victory, but without Jude Bellingham, I guess it's probably good enough for them. They're going to probably keep this very, very tight. I think Leipzig, we saw them, they were pretty aggressive, but they were at home. They're now behind, which is going to be especially concerning. And Leipzig, certainly, I mean, a draw will eliminate them, so they're going to have to go for a win, and that's going to be concerning. But I don't know that Real Madrid are that likely to win by a big margin here. I think Leipzig will probably stay pretty conservative defensively, so I'd lean to the road underdog and under as I won the under the first leg of this series. And last but not least, we have Manchester City, a 2.25-goal favorite to FC Copenhagen. All the juice in Copenhagen right now, and that's actually got a little bit of money bet on them so far. Total here is 3.5, all the way juiced to under, no movement there. I played the under the first time, of course, late stoppage time goal. Been a lot of those lately, and it was brutal. But Copenhagen, I don't know what they're going to do because they're way behind 3-1. I mean, no road goals matter, so that's I guess a good thing. They only need to win 2-0 at Man City at the Etihad, but they're going to try their best, and I think I'd like under more than anything there. So it's time for the ultimate best bet. We'll get that out, and I'll throw it on YouTube and on Instagram at @thereal_G Warner on both those platforms, plus on Twitter. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/thereal_G Warner as well. Best spot to get all my plays, leans, write-ups, everything. If you download the app, you just turn on notifications, and you get a little buzz every time I lock something in, so you can make sure you get the same price that I am getting, and you don't have to wait until match day or game time and all that sort of stuff. So check that out, patreon.com/thereal_G Warner. So it's time for the ultimate best bet. So let's get into it. Hey, this is the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet for the Champions League week of February 20th. And I'll give you my two best bets. From Tuesday, I liked Atletico Madrid under 2.25 goals. And from Wednesday, I like FC Porto getting 3/4 a goal right now from Arsenal. I'll be waiting to see if that hits +1 before I probably lock it in, but I'm using live lines or what's available as I'm recording on Monday night, February 19th. If you're not a member on Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/thereal_G Warner. Best spot to get all my plays, leans, write-ups, everything. But you're here for ultimate best bet, so let's get into it. I'm going to choose that Atletico Madrid under 2.25 goals. I think that was a huge win for them this weekend. They didn't have to use their best players, and they're really their best attackers. But Alvaro Morata seems like he's hurt, and I think he's actually pretty important for them scoring goals. They're going to go to Inter Milan and try their best to keep this as low scoring as possible. I think a goalless draw is ideal for them. So play Atletico Madrid under 2.25 on Tuesday of the UEFA Champions League. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully I didn't distract you too much from Houston and Iowa State college basketball if you're following that. But I will see you all very soon. Please hit the follow, subscribe, like, leave a 5-star review wherever you can, wherever you're listening. And I will talk to you all maybe soon with another podcast you might not be expecting.